Welcome to today's 5 Good Minutes. You're listening to today's inspirational message on the book of Jonah with Bjorklund.
The story of Jonah is about Jonah running from the presence of God. And our story is often about our own lives and the times that we run from the presence of God rather than to our God. But running from God doesn't always do what we think it will do. In fact, I would like to suggest some things that running from God doesn't do. And that is, running from God doesn't limit his precepts. It doesn't change his word. Sometimes we may start to think that if we run from God, that changes things. But notice in this passage that the call of God on Jonah to go to Nineveh did not change because he ran from the command of God. You and I may think, if I simply ignore this command, if I simply do my own thing long enough, then there will not be a lasting command. But running from God doesn't limit his precepts. Secondly, it doesn't limit his presence. Again, notice that he was trying to get away from the presence of the Lord, but the Lord was in the midst of the storm. And he told the sailors that he was trying to run from the presence of God. He knew what he was trying to do, but trying to go the opposite direction to the furthest ends of the earth, again, is symbolic of saying you can try to go as far away as you want, and God was there in the midst of the storm. Third, I did think we need to know that running from God doesn't limit his power. God's power is obviously unlimited. But sometimes there's a thought that says, I haven't seen God work in maybe a while in a powerful way, so I'm just going to go and do what I think I should do. But God's power is so great that anything you do is never beyond his power. But there's one more thing here that I want you just to see, and that is when I run from God, we are not beyond, and it doesn't limit his personal care. In fact, it was the Lord who pursued Jonah. And it was the Lord who sent this great fish to swallow Jonah and to have the fish spit Jonah up on dry land. It was the Lord who cared so much about Jonah that he gently, in a sense, with these sailors, had them fear God in some ways more than Jonah did. And so there was this sense of personal care. And I don't know how you may be running from God in your own life, but there's a chance that as you are thinking about this week, thinking about how God's word speaks, that you find yourself saying, well, I've run from God, and since I've run from God, it's too far now. There's nothing that I can do that will undo kind of the damage that's been done. And I believe that that's more the voice of Satan than anything in your life, saying God doesn't care, God can't use you, God can't redeem what has happened. And what I want you to hear and to see in this passage, that even though Jonah blatantly disobeyed, put himself and others in peril, that God's personal care was still active and pointed in Jonah's life. And I think a lot of times, if you will stop and look, you will see that God is arranging circumstances, people, things around you to keep drawing you back to himself and saying to you, there is a better way than the course that you're on. And often it will be gentle. Sometimes it will be more severe. And as Sheldon Van Auken once wrote in his book, A Severe Mercy, the mercy that is severe feels severe, but it's actually full mercy because it leads us to where we ultimately need to be and what's best for us. And so I hope that today, as you think about your own spiritual journey, you can see that running from God doesn't limit God's precepts, his presence, his power, but especially his personal care for you, wherever you are and wherever you're headed.
Thanks for joining us here today. There's a lot of great content to explore on Orchard Hill Plus and on the Orchard Hill main feed from the weekend. Have a great day.